Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach, and today we have with us Joris, Bryon, who's the founder and CEO of Dexter Agency, a remote team of e-commerce conversion optimization specialists. Joris, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mike. Great to be here.
Hey, I'm excited to talk to you because I think that it's so interesting, conversion optimization, and I think that a lot of people might think that's a big old word, that what does it mean? But I just think that it's so critical today because you're typically getting people to your store or website some way or another, paid or organic, and you want to make sure that every single visitor potentially has the chance to do something. And so if you're throwing money at ads, then you might be throwing money away if you're not optimizing things the right way. So I really am looking forward to talking to you about that today. But before we get into that, give us a little background on your entrepreneurial journey. What led you into this field?
Yeah, so it's been a bit of a long journey. I started my career about 20 years ago, and I started in classical advertising agencies, working there. Did that for about 10 years, and kind of got fed up with the whole discussion, the eternal discussions about make this blue, make this red, put this on the left, put this on the right, and all those discussions based on gut feeling, and it kept going on and never went anywhere, I had the feeling. And so I started a video production company at some point. That failed, and then I stumbled into digital marketing, basically, and started with SEO first, and I decided to start working for an agency, digital marketing agency, because it really inspired me, because it was also data driven, and I really loved that. So in that agency, one day I went to a conference and I saw a talk about conversion optimization, and I immediately fell in love with it, because for me it was kind of the combination of what I was doing in a digital marketing agency and anything that I had learned before in a classical advertising agency about psychology, about design, about copywriting, but now combined with a whole lot of data and statistics and that kind of stuff. So that was, for me, that was really a revelation, and I immediately knew, like, okay, this is what I want to do, and I specialize in, and I started studying everything I could lay my hands on. And then, because the agency, I couldn't really do any projects like that, I decided to leave and venture out on my own, first as a freelancer, and that went pretty good. And at some point, you got to make a choice, like, am I going to keep freelancing or just evolve it in an agency? And I chose the latter, because I have a hard time saying no to clients, so I had no other choice but growing it into an agency. And yeah, that's 6 years ago now. So been running this agency for 6 years now, and still doing conversion optimization. But in a general term, like, we work with what our clients already have. So it's not just the conversion rate, but also average order value and purchase frequency. So anything but traffic is what we work on.
Yeah, so once the traffic is dialed in, that's when you step in to say, okay, let's make sure it's optimized. Let's make sure your conversions are optimized. And then part of the optimization is, like you said, the cart value and average cart value that way. So let's talk a little bit about conversion optimization, because I am certain that people would think, oh, yeah, that means X, but there's a lot of misconceptions about that. What is conversion optimization to you? How do you focus on it?
Yeah, for me, I define it as working with everything you already have and trying to get more out of that. So you could focus on traffic and adding more traffic, but what a lot of entrepreneurs forget is that they already have that traffic and they can still optimize that. They already have transactions, but you can get a higher cart value from every transaction. You already have customers. How do you get them back to your store and buy more from you? So you already have those assets, but usually what we see is you don't pull those levers enough, and a lot of entrepreneurs, they get to a certain point just thanks to the traffic and adding traffic, and they get so stuck in a traffic mindset, and they only think of that as the only lever to grow their store. But if you if you actually look at those other levers, that's where there's a lot of potential to double your business even. And for me, that's the definition. It's really working with what you already have. And I know there's people that call it conversion rate optimization. I think that's too narrow as a term because it focuses too much on the conversion rate aspect. And conversion rate as such is an important metric. But at the end of the day, if you run a store, for instance, what matters is your revenue and your profit. It's easy to double your revenue if you just slash your prices. Your conversion rate is gonna go up, but that's not. I mean, the conversion rate is double, but how does that help you? So at the end of the day, it's about revenue and profit, and that's what you need to focus on. So for me, it's a kind of a broad field conversion optimization rather than just calling it conversion rate optimization, which in my opinion is a little bit too narrow. But that's like going into the nitty-gritty of the definition, and I guess we're stuck with that definition, and we'll have to.
Well, I think a lot of people just feel like, like in their business, I need more sales / revenue. So let's go get more sales. But if in fact they get more sales, but they have bad processes or they have a lot of expenses, then it doesn't make it to the bottom line. So someone might feel like, well, let's get more traffic because we want more traffic to get more sales and bottom line. But in reality, you can get more sales and bottom line revenue with the same exact amount of traffic. You just need to optimize and convert that traffic a little bit better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the case. And I feel a lot of companies get stuck in that traffic mindset because it brought them up until a certain point. So when they want to keep growing, they keep looking at extra traffic. I want extra traffic. But just asking one simple question usually opens their eyes, and that is, do you want more traffic or do you want more revenue? And it's always more revenue. No one has ever said, "Oh yeah, I want more traffic. I don't care about the revenue." Yeah. So that's usually an eye opener. Like, oh, okay, there's other ways out there to increase the revenue and grow the business.
Well, and if you think about it, you can always turn up that knob on increasing the ad spend. You can always throw more money at whatever source that you're using, and you will see probably an increase in sales, but you're leaving money on the table because things are falling through the cracks without having that good user experience or that good clear path forward. When they hit the website, they know exactly why they're there. They know exactly what you do. And I would venture to say that one of the first steps that you take before you advise someone, sure, let's get more traffic to the site. Let's make sure that once that traffic gets there, that we know the buyer's journey. We know what they're going to do. We know the next click they're going to make. So where do you start there?
Yeah, I mean, what we usually do is we start with research and really trying to understand where the leaks are in that customer journey, and you have to compare it to leaky bucket. And so you just got to plug those leaks first before you pour more water in. And we just look at, okay, first, where are the leaks? So, and it's usually we look at Google Analytics, but then we also try to understand why are people dropping off there? Why are we losing them there in those steps of the customer journey? And that's a lot of focus on qualitative analysis. And what we like to do is we like to do a lot of user testing because that sheds a totally different light on the data that you have, because you have the data and you look at those and you just see numbers in a very abstract way. But when you do qualitative research, you start to understand the behavior behind those data. And I think that's really important, is really focus more on qualitative research to understand the why, because we're all so obsessed with numbers and quantitative research that we sometimes forget there's people behind it, and you have to try and get into the minds of those people to understand why are they not buying, why are they dropping off, why are they not spending more, and that's something, for instance, Google Analytics cannot solve. You have to do other forms of research to try and understand all of that.
So, A, what other kind of research can you do? And B, what should you be looking for? Is it as simple as just an A/B test of let's change the color on the landing page and see if people respond better to this shade of whatever? But how deep can we go there? Because you can drive yourself nuts with let's try this and try that, and you need to have a system and plan in place, I would suspect.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also what I talk about in my book. I try to make it clear, like step by step, what you should be doing, because you can go, you can go really deep when you start doing your research. But I think the absolute minimum that you should do is obviously look at Google Analytics. Then the second one is have an expert look at your site and point out potential conversion killers. And I'm stressing potential conversion killers because obviously it's just one person's opinion, and yes, it's an expert, and they'll know more about conversion optimization probably than you, but they might be wrong as well. They're not your perfect target audience. What is a problem on one site isn't necessarily a problem on another site. So an expert review is an important step, but it's only to highlight potential issues. Third one is user testing. That's crucial to any conversion optimization project. Then there's a bunch of other tools that you can do, or research methods. You could look at click maps. You could do scroll maps. There's stuff like 5-second and so on. I describe all of that in my book. I don't want to bore you about that. So I think that answers the first part. The second part of the question, can you repeat that, please? Because I don't remember.
I think I was just mentioning, how deep should you go in things like A/B testing? Should you just change the color of this and test that? Right. Should you change where the buy button is and test that? At what point do you just stop and use best practices and move on from there?
Yeah, so if you do the research right, you'll also understand where your biggest problems are. And what we try to do is quantify that somehow. If we see in Google Analytics there's an unusual high drop-off on a certain page, we make a calculation. What if we can limit the drop-off on this page to this amount? How much money would we be making on a yearly basis? And if you do that, you already start prioritizing pages on which to start optimizing. So that's the first. Like, you understand which pages need to be optimized first. And then the second thing is really from the more qualitative research that you do, you'll see, for instance, if in the user testing, all of your users mention a certain issue, yes, and it's very likely that it's a really big issue. So you'll get a feel of what's really important and what not. So we let the research usually guide us in what do we do first, which A/B tests are we going to set up, what are we going to test. But on a general note, I think there's a lot of things that can be done usually around copywriting. A lot of people think it's design, it's colors that are important, and yes, those are somewhat important. But usually, copy is where you can make the biggest difference, and copy that can go from a good value proposition on your homepage to good product descriptions that mentions not just features but also benefits, and that explain your USPs very clearly, that make them prominent as well. So usually we see a lot of opportunities with copy, but it could also be a simple call to action that is more specific and more clear to what people should be doing on that page. So that's, if you have to start somewhere, my guess is that usually you can make a lot of improvements there. And it's not just rewriting stuff, but it's also adding information. And really, if you notice, for instance, on a product page that a lot of people still have questions about your product, then your copy is not doing a great job. Your copy should be answering all possible questions people could have on that page. If you don't give them the answer there, the chance is very high that they will just go away and buy somewhere else. So you have to be very complete, and a lack of information is actually one of the biggest conversion killers out there. So that's all copy. So copy is usually a very good place to start.
I was going to mention a point about copy, but then when you mentioned the product page, I would say that in one of your chapters in the book, I saw that in the table of contents, you had a section about social proof. So we want third-party social proof. We want people talking about your product or service. So on that product page, I would say one of the big drivers to conversion would be, let's make sure we have some great social proof right there on the product page so that people can see, oh, this product does this and that. Look what this person said. Here's a video testimonial. Here's a written testimonial. Here's a case study. Maybe down toward the bottom where they can kind of glance at and see it. But I think that would really help people realize, okay, these people have used this exact product and they said this about it. Do you find that helps conversion as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially when it comes to e-commerce, but social proof is important everywhere. But when it comes to e-commerce, we're all used to checking reviews before we make a decision. So reviews are super important for e-commerce, but also, as you said, like a video testimonial can really be helpful. So it's not just reviews, but it could also be a video testimonial. It could be some authority figure that I don't know, a quote from that authority figure about your product, for instance, or your store in general. That could help as well. So there's different ways to go about it. One thing to watch out for, though, is what you sometimes see on reseller sites is they'll have on their site like followers on Facebook or another social media, and they mention there's like the ticker of how many people are liking the page or following that page or have shared it or whatever. And if that's on a product page, that's often going to be 0. Now, what happens there is the opposite of social proof. So people say like, oh, nobody likes this, so I'm not going to buy this. So it's like a tiny little thing on your page that can throw people off entirely, and that's because it's just the opposite of social proof. And a lot of people overlook it and think like, yeah, man, well, if people want to like it, they can like it, but there's a 0 there, so it's better to remove it altogether instead of having it there and showing anti-social.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I like that a whole lot. I think that myself, but it's nice to hear that other people are like, that is a factor. So, that's a really great one. So you mentioned your book, Kill Your Conversion Killers with the Dexter Method. So obviously you've got a method, and we don't have time to get into that, but that's the kind of the secret sauce that you and your agency holds to drive the results that you drive. One of the things in the table of contents that I saw that I thought was super interesting was resist the urge of a redesign, why a radical redesign can go terribly wrong. So talk a little bit about redesign, because I feel like a lot of people, like you've touched on before, it's like, well, if we tweak this and add that, you can redesign and never get anything done, and you get a paralysis by analysis. And so at some point, a website should work just because, like you touched on before, the copy speaks to them, and it should not be. So for instance, answer the question about redesign and how copy ties into that, where one enhances the other.
Yeah, so about that radical redesign thing, I think the best analogy you can make, well, at least it's one I like to make, is so you may have conversion killers on your problem, and let's say a fly represents your conversion killer. Now, what you do with a radical redesign, so we just change the entire site. What you do is you bomb the fly, and what happens is, yes, you'll kill the fly, but at the same time, you'll have a lot of collateral damage, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. What's way better to do is kill that fly like a sniper, so with a well-aimed shot or a few shots, and take away just that problem and not all the rest. So what you do is you test solutions to the problems that you found, and only when you know that it's going to make you more money or get you more leads or whatever your site or your main conversion is on your site, only then are you going to implement it to your site. So you evolve the site or let it evolve step by step. And that's really important as of a certain size. I mean, if you're very small, sometimes you have to make like those really big changes because it affects your business as a whole, and your business has evolved dramatically, so you make a lot of changes at the same time. That's fine. But when you get to a certain size, you have to do it step by step and only implement changes when you know that they're going to make you more money. And it's something that Amazon, for instance, they've never done an entire redesign. They've just changed along the way and tested every change and only implemented those changes that made sense. And so where the copy ties in, it's like, okay, if you understand where your problems are, then you test copy changes. Let's say you notice that people on the homepage, they don't really understand what you do. You write a new value proposition and you test that value proposition against the previous version, and you see which one works best. And if you find a winner, you think like, oh, okay, so this basically validates the idea that I had. People didn't really understand what the value proposition was about. This value proposition seems better, but maybe you can tweak it even further to make it even better. And you test it again against another version. So you can basically keep testing there until you find the absolute best version. And so copy is just one thing to test on the site, and so one of the shots that you make as a sniper, basically.
Yeah, I love it. And I've always heard of, everyone's favorite radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me?
Yeah,
and it's almost like you have to think about people reading over your copy, your website, thinking, so what? So what? Your headline on your webpage. So what? But if you could speak to them and say, well, don't you feel like, and haven't you ever experienced? Now they're like, yeah. You kind of get into their head of having their mind kind of like answering those questions, as opposed to, we're the best and you should choose us because, and we did this and we did that. Now you have to say we, because you have to validate yourself, but much of your copy should speak to them through that what's in it for me and that so what mindset. And I think that ties that value proposition really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. That's my favorite radio station as well, like anyone else's. Yep. It's so important to try and phrase it from your customer's perspective and what's in it for them. But we all get we all fall in love with our own business and we talk about ourselves, and it's very tempting, but we have to stop ourselves sometimes and take a step back and think like, okay, so, and that's where user testing comes in. For instance, if you see someone else look at your site and they don't understand, or they're like, yeah, whatever, then that's confronting on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's a very good eye-opener and makes you see that you have to step in the shoes of your customer.
Yes, 100%. Well, Joris, it's been really great chatting with you about conversion and strategy. So let's wrap up with what's the best way someone that is listening to this might think, well, my e-commerce store might need a little bit of help. What is the best way that they can reach out, connect with you, maybe get a copy of your book?
Yeah, so if you're interested in a copy of the book, you can just go to dexter.agency/free-book. And there you can download a free PDF version of my book. Well, you can buy it on Amazon as well, of course, but I mean, why pay for it if you can download a free copy? And if you want to reach out to me directly, you can email me at joris@dexter.agency, or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn as well, so let's connect there as well.
Excellent. Well, Joris, thank you so much for coming on today.
Great to be here, Mike. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.